Joining us now, Stephen K. Bannon, former key strategic advisor to President Trump, chairman of the 2016 campaign, and now host of the greatest, biggest, baddest radio show in the history of radio and TV, and that is War Room Pandemic, heard on the John Fredericks Radio Network, 10 to 12, Monday to Saturday. And he's with us now. Steve, great to have you.
Thanks for having me, John, and welcome you and the team at Virginia Star into the big leagues. When Media Matters does a hit piece on you, it means that you're relevant, right? They only do hit pieces on people that are relevant. So congratulations to the team so shortly after the launch.
Only 8 weeks after, and we get a hit piece on us by Media Matters. So actually, we put it up on our website, tweeted it out, Facebooked it out. I thought it was a pretty good piece.
You got to tweet that. It shows you're relevant. Listen, the story in Lynchburg is a very important story. Remember, that's going on across the nation, and this is what we warned about. This is why people have to volunteer, not just to be poll watchers. You have to volunteer to be election officials, not in the room, not in the deal. The count is going to take place in the room. The plot to steal 2020 is, President Trump's going to run up the score big league on the game day vote, on actually the way we traditionally vote, which is go in, close the curtain, cast a ballot in secret. Only you and God know who you voted for. But all this mail-in vote is going to be counted. Multiple hands are going to touch it. And the key is to make sure that some of those multiple hands are tough, deplorables, Trump movement people who are not going to let a non-certifiable ballot count. This is not about ballots that are the ballot can be certified. It absolutely has to count. We must have that. We want more people to vote. We want more access to voting. We support that. The reason is there's more Trump voters out there with the Trump movement, but the ballot has to be certified, and that's what's so critical. That's why they're lying down in Lynchburg. First, we know it's all Democrats. I'm saying it's Republicans because they understand that that's the way they roll. They understand they want to be in the room by themselves, certifying these things by themselves, because a big percentage, in Brooklyn, in a Democratic primary controlled by Democrats, with only Democratic candidates and only Democratic election officials, 30% of the mail-in vote was not certifiable. That's in woke Brooklyn. In know-it-all Manhattan, 20%. They're talking about in Pennsylvania right now, it could be 10 to 20% of the mail-in ballots because of this thing. It's got to be in an outer envelope. That's the rules. That up to 20% of the mail-ins may not count, may not be certifiable. That, ladies and gentlemen, could be the difference between victory and defeat. Remember, we won by 72,000 total votes in 3 states last year, in 16. So every vote matters here. Every person you bring to the poll, every time you act as a force multiplier. But also now's the time. You got to get out the vote. You got to do the phone banks. You got to bang on doors, because this is all about getting low propensity voters to vote. But then it's got to flip immediately to both poll watchers, but most importantly to volunteer, like the situation in Lynchburg, that you're going to be in the room, and that's where this thing's going to get decided, is in these ballot counting rooms.
Well, the Lynchburg thing is really scary, because what the registrar in Lynchburg did is they counted these absentee ballots with no Republicans there. But in order to get around the law, because there has to be Republicans there, in order to get around the law, what they did was they took people that were registered Democrats, had them change to non-party affiliation. So, well, I'm now non-party affiliated, and that according to Virginia law, they can. It was a complete fraud, and we caught them red-handed, and they're still denying it. But the Republican Party of Virginia hasn't done crap about it because they don't have the people. That's the problem. They don't have the people. They say they do, but they don't. Otherwise, they would have been there, Steve.
Well,
that's why you got to volunteer.
This is why John Fredericks Radio Network is the difference between victory and defeat. This is why I do this show. This is why last night I was talking to a group. Every night I'm doing 2 and 3 multiple calls throughout the nation, trying to focus on battleground states. Last night was Pennsylvania, to the Trump volunteer group, because these people are going door to door to get low propensity voters. They're also going to be election officials, and they're poll watchers. And here's the thing: most of them had never volunteered to be an election official before. They had the exact same problem in Pennsylvania, got the exact same problem in Florida, it's got the exact same problem in Virginia. Nobody ever told them that they could actually volunteer. This is why we have to have a call to the ramparts. And you can't depend. Look, RNC under Rana has done some terrific things. I hope they go into court today and file suit against Twitter and Facebook, FEC, about a in-kind contribution to the Biden campaign for suppressing the New York Post financial stories on the Chinese Communist Party. But Lynchburg is an example of what they're doing. Lynchburg's also an example of how they will look you in the eye and lie about it to get people to change their party affiliation. The Lynchburg story is massively important, and I hope it gets up on Fox tonight and gets some national attention, because this is emblematic of what they're going to do. It's also emblematic of how you can't trust them. To look in the eye, they'll find some sort of wrinkle, get people to change party affiliation, to basically have themselves in the room counting uncertifiable ballots. That's what this is about. It's quite complicated. It's not that easy. These absentee ballots and mail-in ballots, right? You got to do a lot of things right, okay? And most people don't do a lot of things right. That means the ballot's not certifiable. That means the ballot doesn't count. And this is what's going to be so important. You talk about could be a range of 50 million to 80 million mail-in ballots this time. And that's why, remember, in 2000, it was a couple of hundred in a few districts in Broward County and Palm Beach County. Now you're talking about 10, 12 battleground states with 50 million ballots. What's happening in Lynchburg is what's going to happen in this fiasco that the Democrats have brought upon us, because they've used the mainstream media to create mass hysteria that's traumatized their base about this pandemic. And you know, John, you and I disagree about the pandemic. Jack Maxey, my co-host, disagree. But on war and pandemic, we tried to do a range of, all the way from it's a bioweapon to it's a hoax and everything in between. What the mainstream media has done to the Democrats is traumatize them, right? And that's why they don't want to go to the poll. They want to vote by mail. They don't want to stand in line. They want to vote by mail. And that's why it's so absolutely important that we have people in the room. And for your audience, what we need is the deplorables to get in touch with the local election officials and to volunteer. Because even more important than it is 10x,
right,
more important to be in the room as an election official than it is to be a poll watcher. Poll watchers are important, but poll watchers are going to be on the margins. The problems here are not going to be at the polls. But I think
we need election officials, and I'm telling you, that's what I keep telling my audience. In Virginia, we need election officials. We're going to get you looped in. All you have to do is email my Trump campaign deputy director, Riley Mahoney. Email her right now. You can do it right from your phone, riley.mahoney@gop.com. Riley, just like it sounds, RILEY.mahoney@gop.com. Tell her you want to be an election official, poll watcher, whatever. We will plug you in. We need the bodies. Don't let the Lynchburg situation keep happening, because that's their plan, Steve. They counted thousands of ballots in Lynchburg with no Republican there. You have absolutely no idea. There's no verification of these. Now they're put away in a box, done, and there was no witnesses there. You're right. This is what they're going to do all over Virginia and all over the United States.
It's all over the U.S. The only way Trump loses here is if it's stolen, and this is how they're going to steal it. They're going to steal it, and how they're going to steal this is exactly what went on in Lynchburg, and this is happening all over the place. This is why, and by the way, if you don't have the people, then they can legitimately say, hey, tough luck. We didn't have any Republicans. Tough break for swell guys. This is what I keep telling people. On midnight on Election Day, no whining and no tears, okay? We understand what we have to do. Here's the game. You have to get low propensity voters out to the polls to vote. We understand that people listening to John Fredericks Radio are going to vote. You're high propensity voters. We understand we're going to get most of the mid propensity voters because of the stakes involved here, but you got to get those guys too. But it's the low propensity voters, the people that only come out and vote for Barack Obama, only come out and vote for Donald Trump. Okay, low propensity voters on both sides are going to determine this election, and it's going to come down to that in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida. These key battleground states, right? Arizona, North Carolina, right? I would love to have Virginia in that mix, but we have to get Virginia in that mix. You have to get low propensity voters that are Trump supporters out. So we know what the game is, and then you have to be in the room when they start counting. So it's no whining, no tears. We know what the task at hand is. I don't want to on November 4th go, this is terrible. Joe, how did this happen? I don't want to hear it. You got to get focused. And by the way, people are focused. Last night in Pennsylvania, it was amazing. The volunteer groups, what they're doing, phone banking. I talked to, just to make sure people understand, I talked to the National Young Republican Federation. They have already done 10 million door knocks, electronic contacts throughout the country in battleground states. So there are groups that are putting their shoulders to the wheel. And what you ought to do is volunteer for one of those groups. There's plenty of time. Hey, we got 18 days. 18 days in politics is a lifetime, and Joe Biden, his momentum's already been stopped by the stories that have come out by the New York Post and others. Tucker had additional information last night, new information with emails that are not on this hard drive. Tucker's got additional information. You're going to see other major media organs coming out with additional information about how Joe Biden is a national security threat. This is not about Hunter. His son is a drug addict, right? His son's a drug addict and a bad guy. This is about selling access to Joe Biden that Joe Biden knew about, the potential to make hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars with the Chinese Communist Party, with the most disreputable companies in China. One of the companies they're talking about is already in bankruptcy, in receivership. Joe Biden's stolen this money from the Biden family that they got in business with, is stolen from the Chinese people. And anybody who listens to our show understands that old 100 names, the deplorables of China, have had everything stolen from them by the Chinese Communist Party. And what the CCP has done is infiltrated the West, guess what, through access to politicians like Joe Biden. This is how the system works. This is not a conspiracy. Remember, this is not a conspiracy. This is the way the system works, right? This is why Joe Biden was head of the pivot to Asia. Joe Biden was so easy on them on cyber intrusions. He was so easy on them on militarization of the South China Sea. The Tidewater audience of your network will understand this. The people in Norfolk at the naval station will understand the South China Sea, how Joe Biden botched that, how we couldn't even patrol it until Donald Trump came up. How did that happen? Joe Biden. And why did it happen? Joe Biden had his 25 hours of one-on-one that he brags about with President Xi. There are no notes for it. They won't release any transcripts. And then after he leaves office, he's got lucrative partnerships for the Chinese Communist Party. Look, Burisma in the Ukraine is a sideshow. What that shows, because it's small money, what that shows is that Joe Biden's a stone-cold liar. He will look you in the eye and lie to you that he knew anything about it, okay? That sets a predicate. He's also lied about China, but China is everything because China is an existential threat to the people of the United States, and it's an existential threat to the world. There are a million people dead because of the Chinese Communist Party virus, right? That's where this came from their P4 lab, and we've got documented evidence of how it came from there. They've committed genocide to the entire world. They're a threat to the Chinese people. It's a group of gangsters, and guess what? They're in business with another group of gangsters, the Biden family. The Biden family sold access. They had a deal on the table that was $10 million a year for 3 years, guaranteed, just to make introductions. They turned that down to flip it into a joint venture where they were going to have 50% of the equity, and Joe Biden would have 10% of that. That was going to create hundreds of millions of dollars of profits with this nefarious Chinese energy company, right? With the guy who's the chairman of, they cut the deal with the guy. He's missing. They think he's either in Chinese. He's been arrested by Chinese authorities, but many of the guys I know in China tell you, oh no, they killed him right away. Why? He knows too much. The number 2 guy, Patrick Ho, who signed the deal, was in federal prison for 3 years and now extradited to Hong Kong. So this is who the Bidens are. And by the way, the mainstream media understands how radioactive it is. That's why Twitter and Facebook shut the story down.
Yeah, they banned it.
It's not hacked. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. It's one of the oldest papers in the country. It's owned by Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch's got, I think, $80 billion of publicly traded market capitalization, the toughest, smartest lawyers in the world. I happen to think Brent Baer says, oh, this is sketchy. Brett, note to self, the same guy that owns your company, okay, the same set of lawyers are the guys that approved the story for the New York Post. So it's not sketchy. It's off a hard drive, and the Biden campaign hasn't even come out.
Why did Baer say that? Yeah, but let's get to that. Why did Brett Baer say that? Because that got my attention. Because I'm like,
he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Anybody knows Brett? Note to self: he's a nice guy, just not the sharpest tool in the shed. Note to self: the New York Post is owned by the same folks that own Fox News. Okay,
right. So if Rupert the lawyers vetted the Post story, it's already vetted by the same company.
You think that Rupert Murdoch and the executives of the New York Post are highly sophisticated and deal with stories like this all the time? You think they would expose themselves to anything? And have you seen the Biden campaign going into court and trying to sue? No, because the countersuit would open them up to discovery to every email, every text message, just not what's on the hard drive. Anybody that's got a scintilla of sophistication know what's going on here. Why do you think Facebook and Twitter shut the thing down? Why did Stephanopoulos not ask a question last night? The tell here is they understand this is radioactive. because it's not Burisma, it's not Ukraine, it's China. It's the Chinese Communist Party. It's the people that took the jobs out of Northeast Pennsylvania where Joe Biden has to win. It's the people that took the jobs out of Northeast Pennsylvania that Joe Biden happens to be in business with, that took the cash from. That's going to make sure that plenty of blue-collar people, including Democrats, don't vote for him. The FBI's had this since November or December of 2019. Two things. Number one, if they had come forward at the time with this material, there would have never been an impeachment. The impeachment process would have been shut down, and the nation and the political class could have focused on, guess what, the pandemic. Okay? Number two, Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee. The Bernie brothers got to understand, for the second time, the FBI came in and covered for the neoliberal, neocon, Democratic, mainstream Wall Street candidate. They did it for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and Bernie lost. They did it for Joe Biden in 2020, and Bernie lost. Okay? The Bernie bros should be outraged by this, and they should come and vote for Donald J. Trump. You're never going to get a straight shot here, okay? The FBI, Christopher Wray, should be called into the Oval Office today and explain himself to William Barr and to Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States, and say, hey, I just got a question. You had this for a year. What happened? How come Johnson's committee how come he didn't go to Senator Johnson's committee? He had a committee on this stuff. You had the hard drive. Why didn't you go to this guy, Ron Johnson, who's in the United States Senate? It's
well, why?
Like
It's
not like you're going to war room pandemic.
Answer the question. Steve, Tim from Hampton, this is kind of a mini Vox Populi. Do me a favor, Kira. Bring in Tim from Hampton. Tim, I know you wanted to ask Steve Bannon this question about the FBI. Steve, go ahead.
Does the FBI director need to be fired by Trump? If
Rudy
he had this
Giuliani
thing for a year during the
2 days ago-
impeachment hearing, Mr. Wray needs to be terminated.
Well, Tim, it's great. Here's what Rudy Giuliani said: he should, as a point of honor, resign. I think the President of the United States has got to call him over with William Barr, ask him direct questions. If he does not have a great answer of why this has not come public, so the Democratic primary voters know about it starting in December, and Senator Johnson's committee didn't get it back by FBI analysis, he should be terminated in the room. Okay, in the room. They got to send a message to these institutions. You've got to start acting for the good of the nation, not who you're trying to protect, which is the permanent political class. The Bernie Sanders voters should be outraged. There was a rigged Democratic primary because the FBI had this hard drive and did not go. They didn't take it to Ron Johnson. They didn't take it to the committee, right?
Why?
They didn't make it public. Would Democratic voters like to know in December of 2019, before the first ballots cast in either New Hampshire or in the caucus in Iowa, would they like to know that Joe Biden and his family are in business with the Chinese Communist Party? Would working-class people in Iowa like to know that? Would working-class people in New Hampshire? How about the working-class people down in South Carolina? You think that would have changed their idea about Joe Biden and know he was basically bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party that took the jobs away, took all the textile jobs away down in South Carolina? You think they'd like to know that? Yes, they would. That's the information they should have. Why did the FBI hold this back? Barr and the President of the United States ought to call him in and say, just give us an explanation. Why did Johnson's committee not have it? Why did the Democratic voters not have it? What happened? If he does not have a great answer, he should be terminated in the room. Okay? This is the problem we have with these apparatuses. They're not accountable. They're out of control. They have their own agendas. And this is not an agenda even against Trump. This is the first agenda against the Bernie Sanders voters. They protect the establishment, whether that's Hillary Clinton in 2016 or Joe Biden in 2020. They protect the establishment. It's time to, by the way, we ought to have a church commission. We ought to clean out all the cockroaches and rats out of this. This thing is a mess. It's now time to hit it with a flamethrower. You start with Wray. It's unacceptable what he's done.
Stephen K. Bannon, unbelievable that there's no accountability here. But is the president going to do this? And that's one of the problems is nothing ever happens to these people, right? Nothing happened to Rothenstein. Nothing ever happens to them, ever. Except probably the only person that had any reprisal was when Jeff Sessions fired McCabe. That was it. Nothing ever happens to them. Hopefully the president will do that. But I mean, I just got to ask you this one question. And then we got to wrap. So 30-second answer. Why didn't Wray take it to Johnson? You said he should have taken it. Why didn't he take it to Johnson?
He didn't take it for the neoliberal, neocon establishment. It's obvious. That's why he didn't take it. He ought to be asked that question. Walk me through why Ron Johnson and the Senate committee did not have this. There's not a great answer. He should be terminated in the room.
Unbelievable. Stephen K. Bannon, I want to thank you for being with us. You'll get Steve, 10 a.m. on the John Fredericks Radio Network, 10 to noon, Monday to Saturday, and also on AVM Satellite, Channel 219. John Fredericks Radio Network.